The movie begins with Colin, a fisherman, going about his daily routine of fishing in the sea. However, he finds a girl entangled in his net instead of fish. He dials the helpline, but receives no response. Assuming the girl is still alive, Colin performs CPR on her, and she regains consciousness. Shocked and disoriented, she can't believe she's alive. Colin asks her name and how she ended up in his net, but she has no memory. He suggests taking her to a doctor, but she refuses, threatening to jump back into the sea if he tries. Colin insists on medical attention, but she insists on staying away from anyone. Colin, understanding her memory loss, invites her to his home, assuring her she'll be safe from prying eyes. They arrive at his house, and Colin assures her she can stay until her memory returns. Later, Colin goes to his ex-wife Maura's house to pick up their daughter Annie. Maura divorced him and is now with another man, but Annie has kidney problems that hinder her mobility. Colin takes her to the hospital. While waiting for the doctor, Colin tells Annie a story about a fisherman finding a beautiful girl in his net. Annie asks if she was a mermaid and Colin says no. Annie then asks if she was Silky, who sings on Seal Rock. Colin asks where she heard that, and Annie says her teacher told her that silkies leave the sea, remove their seal coats, bury them, and can live on land for 7 years. The doctor arrives and takes Annie, providing her with an electric wheelchair for mobility. Colin drops Annie off at her mother's, but Maura berates him for being late. Colin ignores her and leaves. He heads back to the sea to fish. He sees the mysterious girl he rescued and is surprised to find her real. He thought he had dreamt about her, but she is indeed alive. She's wearing his mother's clothes, making her look beautiful to him. She asks to accompany him on his fishing trip, and Colin wonders if she might be good luck. They set off in his boat, and Colin asks her if she remembers her name. She says he can call her Ondine. He asks about the name's meaning, and she explains it means daughter of the sea. Colin begins fishing, and Ondine starts to sing. When Colin retrieves his net, he finds it full of fish. He realizes this is due to Ondine's singing and asks her to sing again. Ondine obliges, and her voice and good luck bring him an abundance of fish. Colin takes the fish to the market, inviting Ondine to come along. She declines, saying she doesn't want to be seen by anyone other than him. He sells the fish, and then goes to a clothing store to buy a dress for Ondine. He's embarrassed to buy underwear, so he steals it. Colin goes to pick up Annie from school. On the way home, Annie asks him to continue the story from the hospital. Colin tells her that the girl in the fisherman's net sang, and her voice attracted the fish, making them get caught in the fisherman's net. Annie says she must have been Silky, but asks where he heard this story. Colin replies, "It's my own story." After dropping her off, Colin returns home and presents Ondine with the underwear and clothes he bought. She is delighted and kisses him on the cheek. Colin expresses his desire for her to stay with him forever. Meanwhile, Annie, convinced by her dad's story, goes to the library and reads books about silkies. The next day, Ondine is bathing in the river when Annie spots her and recognizes her as the girl from her dad's fishing net. She asks if Ondine is the Silky her dad caught, if she has magical powers, and if she can heal her. Ondine tries to explain that she's not a Silky, but Annie doesn't believe her, saying she knows everything about her. Ondine pretends to be a Silky, and Annie asks where her seal coat is and if she buried it to stay on land. Annie claims she knows Ondine buried her coat in the ground and can stay on land for 7 years. After talking for a while, Ondine bids farewell to Annie and says they will meet again. On her way home, Annie is bullied by some kids who throw her wheelchair into the water. She doesn't say anything and walks home. Maura's boyfriend is at the house, and Annie is scared of him. Colin is about to go fishing and asks Ondine to come along. She agrees but insists that no one else should be there. Colin assures her that it will be just the two of them. As they head out to sea, Colin is slightly attracted to Ondine's beauty, but manages to control himself. A Coast Guard boat passes by, and Ondine hides. Some officers come to investigate the boat, find Ondine, and question Colin about hiding her. He claims she's his girlfriend, and there's nothing illegal about it. They ask Ondine if it's true, and she says yes. The officers leave, but the news of Ondine's presence spreads, and she can no longer remain hidden. Colin, Ondine, and Annie go to a clothing shop to buy clothes. Ondine's beauty attracts attention from everyone around. Meanwhile, we see a stranger searching for something. In the next scene, Annie tells Ondine she wants to swim like her, and Ondine starts teaching her. She finds a bag she's been searching for in the water. Annie asks if it's her seal coat, and Ondine confirms. Annie says they need to bury it quickly so she can stay on land for 7 years. They bury the bag in the ground by the river. Ondine tells her it's their secret, and she shouldn't tell anyone. Annie agrees. Colin goes to Maura's house to pick up Annie, and Mora asks him how his water baby is doing. The stranger, who is Ondine's husband, is still looking for her. While on the boat, Annie asks Ondine if all Silkies have husbands and where hers is. Ondine replies that she doesn't have a husband. Later, they go to a competition by the seaside where the town is having fun. Mora and her boyfriend are also there, as is Ondine's husband, who's come to find her. Annie jumps into the sea to reveal Ondine's true nature, trying to prove if she's a Silkie. Ondine jumps in after her and manages to save her, but Annie's condition worsens. When Colin brings her home, Mora is furious. Back at home, Colin tells Ondine about a time when he was drunk, came home, and found Annie unconscious on the floor. Mora was so intoxicated that she didn't care about Annie. Colin managed to take Annie to the hospital and saved her life, but after that, he couldn't get custody of Annie because he was just a simple fisherman. Hearing this, Ondine becomes emotional for him. After that, Ondine and Colin grow closer. Ondine's husband finds her and comes to Colin's house looking for her. He tries to ask Colin about Ondine, but Colin ignores him and walks away. Later, Ondine's husband goes to the place where she's staying, but she hides when she sees him. When Colin returns home, he starts looking for her. After searching for a while, he finds her sitting alone in the darkness. Colin asks her why she's sitting there like that, and she tells him that her husband came looking for her and that he's a bad person. Colin says that he wants her to stay with him forever. Meanwhile, Mora and her boyfriend are driving a car after drinking, and they get into an accident with Ondine's husband's car. Mora's boyfriend dies and Annie is injured. Colin and Ondine rush to the scene of the accident and take them to the hospital. Annie's condition worsens, and she urgently needs a donor. Fortunately, Mora's boyfriend's kidney matches Annie's, so they perform a transplant. Ondine's husband comes to take her, saying, "Let's go, we don't belong here," but she refuses and leaves. In the next scene, we see Mora's boyfriend's funeral. Mora is very sad and can no longer walk. She tells Colin that he can take care of Annie from now on and keep her with him, but she has one condition, that Colin sends Ondine back to where she came from. Colin is unable to decide what to do. Later, Mora and Colin have a last drink together, and Colin gets drunk and goes to the ship and tells Ondine, "I'm taking you back to where you came from. Aren't you a mermaid?" She tries to explain that things aren't the way he thinks they are, but Colin forces her onto an island and leaves her there so he can get custody of Annie. Later, Colin brings Annie home. Annie asks him about Ondine, and Colin says she went back to where she came from. Later, when Annie is changing the TV channels, Colin hears the same song that Ondine used to sing, which convinces him that she's not a mermaid. So he goes back to the island to get her back. After searching for a while, he finds Ondine and apologizes for leaving her alone. On their way back home, Colin asks Ondine who she really is. Ondine tells him, "I'm a prisoner. A while back, my husband made me smuggle drugs with him, but when the police arrived, he told me to jump into the sea. I was swimming and fainted. I thought I was going to die. Then you saved me." When they arrive home, they see Ondine's husband coming to get the bag of drugs. Ondine tells him where the bag is hidden, but it's not there because Annie had hidden it elsewhere. Ondine asks her to tell her the correct location, but Annie refuses, saying that if she gives her back her seal coat, she'll leave. After some pleading, Annie gives in and tells her. They all go to the place where the bag is hidden. Then, Ondine pushes her husband into the water. He can't swim and drowns. The police arrive, take Ondine's husband's body, and also take Ondine into custody because she isn't a citizen of that country. Colin wants to marry her, so he marries her, and she becomes a citizen of the country. This is where the story ends happily. So guys, please like the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Take care.